because of the people that the space, the institution itself attracted, the many people we met there, and then also the people we brought to the space who were friends of ours who had not known of Zambezi. So that cross-fertilization has been very rewarding, and it's just grown and matured over the years. We've also worked with Zambezi through an organization we both belong to, the International Black Buyers Manufacturers Expo and Conference, long word for IBMEC is the abbreviation, the acronym. And that was a gathering of essentially retailers and manufacturers that would happen at least once, maybe twice a year for about 10 years, usually in Washington, D.C., where we discussed really the business development strategies and the challenges that were members of this industry, the cultural production and retail industry, were facing. And so much great information came out of that, as well as lifelong friendships and relationships that continue even to this day. So, you know, through the art, through the enterprise environment, through discussions, forums, panels, workshops, to kind of drill down into what this really represents and how it really operates. I guess our relationship has been on many levels over many, many years. I am a leather craftsman slash artist, and my work I'd call the art of leather, and it really involves creating and superimposing art images on functional leather objects. So my products wind up being leather accessories that bear a visual art imprint. Usually my designs are culturally inspired, from ancient Kemet all the way up to contemporary times, using the faces, profiles, and styles of Black women from ancient to modern times, all manners of African art, fabrics, geometric patterns, designs, and kind of blending all of this into kind of what I would hope would be a visionary projection of African culture and African imagery, so that as my customers wear my work out into the world, they're sharing kind of a higher vision of our cultural aesthetic. That's one part of what I do. Another piece is cultural promotion. You know, I'm a strong advocate of the importance of this arena. One, as providing economic foundation for the liberation of our people from, you know, an oppressive capitalist system. Two, providing outlets of creativity. Three, empowering the consumer with tangible objects that represent highest manifestation of our culture. Four, you know, broadcasting that message so that, you know, as a people, we are perceived, understood, and respected on the level that we deserve to be. I think it's an artist's function to translate, you know, the history and culture of a people, and to keep it current, to keep it up to date, to keep it relevant and important. And so that's kind of what we do. And also trying to work within the arena, within the industry that we're a part of, to make it more impactful in the broader scheme of things. Well, during the holiday season, Akosua and I make it a habit of visiting each of the cities that we primarily market to. So in 5 weeks, we will have done shows in Detroit, Chicago, Washington, D.C., here in Los Angeles, and finally in New York City. And generally, our shows are kind of private, public events to which we invite our clientele in that city, as well as, you know, tapping into the audience, the natural audience of our host environment. Sometimes these are art galleries, sometimes they are just private spaces here in a retail environment. So it's a great, as I said, cross-fertilization. You know, we really enjoy the energy of bringing people together, of sharing our recent creativity, and meeting old friends. Having done this traveling marketing process over these 20 years, we've developed and created communities of friendship in each of these cities. So it's very interesting in that, you know, very much kind of in the African tradition, as traveling artists and artisans, we're messengers also, carrying information from city to city, so that, you know, LA can know what's happening in Chicago, Chicago can know what's happening in New York, New York can know what's happening in DC, and we're able then to glean, I guess, what's common, and the thread that kind of links, and having that overview gives us a great advantage in terms of perceiving trends and being able to inform, you know, communities that, you know, they're not alone, that what they're experiencing is almost universal, and that the strategies that we need to employ to resist those forces need to be global, need to be broader than our separate communities. So this process, you know, is rewarding on a number of levels. The shows at Zambezi are always very good. You know, we always get a very good and warm reception here. The patronage is good. People look forward to us coming. As much as we look forward to coming. I guess several years ago, in fact through IBMEC, we had a conference, one of the purposes of which was to come up with some unified messaging that the industry could use, our industry could use, to convey our message to our people. You know, I used the example of like the pork industry, the pork producers, the hog manufacturers, the packagers, the retailers, came up with this slogan, pork, the new white meat. I mean, it's like, or got milk. Each of these industries has this kind of tagline that positions that industry in your mind and has benefits across the board of every sector that is in that industrial chain. As we sat down over the weekend, we kind of came up with a number of slogans, and then we did an internet poll to our constituents to find out which of those slogans had the most traction. And it came back, our culture is our future, was number one. And that is such an important statement because most of our community, through media, viewership, listenership, is tuned to the arena of politics as if it were the important sector that we need to pay attention to. And that's not the case. That is an illusion. It's important to vote. It's important to pay attention to who you elect. But at the end of the day, elected officials are staff of major corporations. They work for corporations. They don't work for the people. And an election comes and goes. Governments come and go. But culture is permanent. Culture is where we live. Culture represents every aspect of our life that's important to us as human beings. Most people, when you say culture, they think of art, music or dance or theater or film. But culture, at its fundamental level, is everything that human beings do to live. Culture is education. Culture is food. Culture is the house you live in. Culture is the clothes you wear. Culture is your family, your relationship, your spirituality, your health. Everything that is important to our lives is grounded in culture. And to the extent that our minds and our attentions are distracted, paying attention to political machinations, to the neglect of culture, we suffer. And what we're seeing now is the political and corporate arena encroaching on cultural processes and destroying them in the process. For example, the health system in America used to be nonprofit. Now it's profit-driven. So that is destroying healthcare in the sense that if you don't have insurance, if you don't have good insurance, there's no incentive for the healthcare system to treat you. You know, my dad, who's 87 years old, has union health insurance and Medicare. And when he goes to the hospital, they are so glad to see him. They're so glad that he stays there for a while. They test everything, they treat everything. You know, a cousin of his with similar ailments, without similar insurance, gets sent home the next day with no treatment. That's as a result of a for-profit healthcare system. We have the drug industry that is selling you prescription drugs with warnings, you know, that this may kill you. Okay, it's going to treat your psoriasis, but one of the side effects may be death. And they're advertising this every night, for profit. We have the for-profit system encroaching on education. They're privatizing education. Why? Because that's a better approach? No, because they can make money out of it. So as politics encroaches on culture, it distorts and perverts it. Corporate power is on top of our music. And so instead of the broad range of music being expressed, you know, in the black community, all you can hear on our radio stations is hip hop. No blues, no jazz, no Zydeco, no Cajun music, no Caribbean music, no African music, no nothing but hip hop. And that controls the mindset and the flavor and the temperament of our community. You can go down the line. The clothes we wear are made in China, and they fall apart. Everything we own, you know, corporate control as opposed to cultural control. And I saw this slogan on Facebook once, that we don't need a political government, we need a cultural government. We need monitoring of the functions that are happening in our community. Our families are disintegrating. Our children are disrespecting their parents. There's just no, you know, monitoring and management of our lives in this chaos. And we are all being commodified, manipulated for the benefit of the marketplace, of the corporation. So we see that our challenge is to populate and manage and become strong in our culture. And that's our grounding. You know, what is sports? That's culture. You know, what is music? That's our culture. All the things that we are greatest at are grounded in culture. But those are the things that they show us. They never show us how great we are as scientists. They never show us how great we are as theoreticians, as intellectuals, as academics, as any of the other things that we've invented or mastered on this planet. And the fact of the matter is, civilization at its basis is an African invention. They tell us that Western civilization began in Greece and then went to Rome, but in fact, Egyptians, African people in Egypt, were so sophisticated and so advanced in this civilization, they would not let Greek people into Egypt because they were so primitive. So there's no way that Greece invented civilization. In fact, we're living in the European misinterpretation of our civilization's origins. They took our religion, they took our architecture, they took everything from us and twisted it, and now we're living in that. And they're still doing that. Everything we create, they take, twist around, and sell it back to us in a bastardized form. And enough of that. You know, we are bright enough, intelligent enough, grounded enough, powerful enough amongst ourselves to seize control of our culture for the benefit of our children. We cannot continue this spiraling descent into oblivion that they have us on. We're better than this. You know, we're better than this chaos and this killing and this whatever this thing is. And we have to, grounded in our culture, you know, take control of our future. I mean, this is I think, a very important subject that needs exploration. And beyond the superficial level, what I'm observing is, again, an industry that's churning out products and devices, each of which comes with kind of like the quick guide or the quick setup guide of how it's used. And what we are becoming is tools of the technology instead of using the technology as tools. Technology must be used to accomplish our objectives. We cannot become pawns of devices. I mean, you see people walking around with a smartphone. Now, this smartphone gives you access to all the documented history of the planet. I mean, in your hand, you're holding the totality of human knowledge. And what you're choosing to do with it is chat with your friend. Okay? You're not searching anything. You're not looking for anything. You're not using it to connect. With that tool, you can connect with someone in Accra, Ghana, Port of Spain, Trinidad. Instead, you're using it to connect with your friend who's in the same room with you, sitting across. You know, you can see him, you can get up and go talk to him, but you're texting. These are powerful weapons that could be used to accomplish so much. And I'm concerned that the perspective of African Americans in the technology has been too much pawn and not master. I think we're approaching it from a too low level. I think we need to get on top of it and manipulate these devices to accomplish specific purposes rather than just following the popular culture usage of these things. When we began doing our work, you know, we had to invent the market environment to create patronage. It wasn't there. One of the reasons I know that I chose functional art, wearable art, rather than traditional fine or visual art was that many of my friends were painters, phenomenal painters, painters that I aspired to be. But as I looked at them, you know, they were standing on the end of a line that wasn't moving. You know, in 20, 30, 40 years, maybe they would get recognition. But recognition would really only come to them after they died. That's the system. I mean, that's what they were lining up for. And that didn't make any sense to me, so I decided to get out of the line, start a new line, and take our products directly to our people, bypassing the galleries, bypassing the museums, bypassing the establishment that would mitigate and manage my success, develop direct relationships with my community, and that's how we were able to sustain ourselves. Well, that took a lot of work and a lot of energy, and that process is sunsetting now. The festivals we created are no longer as productive as they used to be. Some of the shows we do are no longer as productive. But here you have the internet. An internet that allows you practically free to communicate with a global audience. And people say global as if it's just a word. That's like billions of people, you know, at a click. And yet, you know, you go online and try to find really the black presence that's really taking advantage of that. It's not there yet. And we're slow to that. We need to really be on top of that, because to have that capacity and not use it is criminal. That could be employing tens of thousands of people in a supply chain to utilize that platform. And we haven't taken advantage of that yet. And still we have rampant unemployment in our community. So the technology platforms and opportunities are there. I just don't think strategically we're looking at them or deploying them to our advantage.